Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just going to do a quick sound check to start with to make sure we're live and you can hear us. So if you can't hear me, if you could type yes in your chat box, just lets us know that we're not talking to ourselves and we are live. Let's have a look, see if people can hear us. Might just be a couple of seconds delay. There we go, fantastic. Thank you for doing that. Like I said, just saves us talking to ourselves for half an hour. So I'm just going to begin. My name is Chantal Newton and I am the Marketing Manager for UKCCF. And I'm joined today by our founder and CEO, Trevor Butterworth, and our guest speakers, Dave Walsh, and Dave is a Senior Consultant at CGI, and Mr. Sousa, who is the Director of Business Consulting at CGI. I've just got a couple of housekeeping points for you. The session is going to last around 30 minutes today. We have a Q&A session after a short presentation, but if any time you do have any questions, please use the chat box on your GoToWebinar that you just use the sound check, and I'll put the question to our panel at the end. The session is being recorded today, and the replay will be emailed to you this afternoon. This email will also contain the card details for Trevor and Dave should you have any questions after the webinar has ended. Put my teeth in, sorry. A copy of the slides are available to you. You can be found on the handouts section of the panel. If you would like the slides emailed to you, just please pop me a message and I will arrange this for you. So to get the session started, I'm going to hand you over to Trevor. And thank you very much, Trevor.
Thank you, Chantal. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our joint UKCCF and CGI webinar introducing the UKCCF Accreditation Programme 2024. Today's session is designed to give you some insight into this new initiative that we have launched in partnership with CGI. So what I would like to do now is introduce you to Dave Walsh, who will walk you through the accreditation program. Dave, over to you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Trevor, and thanks to everyone who's joined to learn a little bit more about the accreditation program today. So I think what we wanted to do is really take you through the why a little bit before we started. Chantal, have I got control of these slides? Sorry.
Yes, you have, Dave, yeah.
There we go. So yeah, so I just wanted to really start off by talking through a bit of the why we decided to launch the UKCCF accreditation program. And to do that, I think we need to go back to the start of the year, where some of you may or may not know that UKCCF and CGI worked together to launch UKCCF's benchmarking program at the start of the year. And in that program, we engaged with about 60 contact centers to learn more about their performance, salary, and a number of different factors to produce a report on the current state of the contact center industry, really, across a number of different factors. And it was a really fascinating exercise to be on. And I think there was some really interesting insights and results that came off the back of it. Certainly, I think it highlighted some challenges that were certainly there within the industry at the moment. I put a bit of a flavour of some of those on this slide for you. But from a customer perspective, key customer metrics like FCR weren't being measured by the majority of organisations. Things like attrition and recruitment were big challenges. Employee engagement was maybe lower than where you'd want it to be. Operational metrics like abandonment, wait times, wrap times are higher than what I would class as typical in the industry. So there was definitely some of that came out of it. But there was also some really good news stories and positive news stories. Some of the organisations that participated were really outperforming those performance metrics, were above industry averages. And when we were meeting with those organisations and getting some of that insight and going through their final report, it was really clear to see that there was a lot of really positive stuff that was happening within those centres, that they were really well run, efficient, well managed contact centres, and obviously they were doing a lot of really positive work to promote best practice. So when we sat back and reflected on that with Trevor after it and started thinking about how we wanted to improve that for next year, so watch that space for the benchmarking program for next year as well. But part of that process, we really started thinking, well, how can we do better? How can we help? Number one, I suppose, raise the standards in those in the industry. I think UKCCF and CGI were just both so passionate about helping elevate standards and passionate about the contact center industry as a whole that we really want to see if there's ways that we can support that. And also, how can we better recognize those organizations who are going above and beyond, who are going the extra mile for customers, agents, and all of that kind of, and should promote some of that good stuff that's happening within the industry as well.
I think, Dave, one of the things which really leapt out at me from the benchmarking was the really good contact centres. We spend a lot of time, I think, particularly in our world, hearing about the negative, and I think consumers as well. There's a lot of talk about poor customer experience, but I think the thing for me personally, seeing the really good things taking place, and also when we get involved with the UKCCF awards and you start seeing all the amazing stuff that gets done in the industry, I really feel that, you know, giving an opportunity to celebrate what good looks like and those that are doing a real good, leading the charge as far as excellence in our industry. I think this is one of the drivers for me for this exercise.
Absolutely. So we then obviously spent some time thinking about, well, what are our roles within that? And I think obviously it was clear, I think with the UKCCF already doing so much to elevate the standards and recognise excellence with programmes like the awards, like you mentioned, Chris, I think it was key that those guys were the face of it and were leading it. So we were thinking then, how does CGI support UKCCF on that journey? And obviously our contact centre consultancy team as that real world experience of running and managing and transforming contact center operations that we could bring to the table to offer and support through those thorough evaluations that need to take place through the evaluation. So that's what we kind of saw as our roles and our commitments as part of the journey. The next couple of months was really spent thinking about, well, what does that framework need to look like and what is that methodology going to be? And we were thinking about all of it. If we were going to do this, what kind of areas do we need to see? What kind of evidence would we need to collect? What would we need to look at as part of the process? And everything that we were talking through really sort of started to fall into three pillars for us. And those were customer experience, agent experience, and strategy planning. And that forms now the core of the framework for the accreditation program. From a customer perspective, we want to look at that end-to-end journey. First and foremost, how easy it is to contact an organization. When you get through to an agent, how engaged is that agent? How empathetic is that agent? How knowledgeable is that agent? What kind of choice do you give a channel in terms of ways of contacting your customers? Obviously, we've got elements of KPI performance in there, how business processes and technology are used to innovate and improve and alleviate pain points for customers. So we wanted to look at all of that. And then from an agent perspective, I think we really wanted to get a feel for what the real world experience is for an agent at the moment. I think we've probably all been in contact centers where there's a really good story and a really good message that gets told, and there's really good values that are written on the wall, but in reality, when you engage with the staff, actually it's not pulling through all the way to the front line. So a big part of what we want to accredit is understanding whether agents are bought into that whole culture and whether the engagement strategies that the business and contact center is putting in place are effective. Obviously, as part of that, we want to assess the people processes, whether that's recruitment, training, coaching and development, performance management, all of those processes impact people. How are they implemented within the organization? Are they fit for purpose, and are they doing their role, I suppose, in terms of engaging and impacting agents positively? The last aspect of the last pillar is obviously around strategy and planning. I think still all too often contact centers are seen as cost centers to a business. So what we really wanted to see within this pillar is, how is a contact center seen as central to an organization? How is it adding value to the wider organization? How is it providing that voice of the customer feedback that helps shape business change and business process change and all of those kind of things? We wanted to see how planning teams are thinking about the short, medium, long-term view and how they're planning for the future of delivering better outcomes for customers, agents, and of course the business. I think we were really conscious when we were building this framework that we wanted it to be accessible, and we wanted it to be something that all types of contact centers could participate in. And I think obviously we've got a lot of our colleagues from the BPO industry on this call today, and we wanted to make sure that they felt that it could be relevant for them as well. And they were probably listening to that framework I was just talking through and thinking, well, is that going to fit for us? Because we don't really have an influence over things like IVR experience or channel choice, but we do our best to support our clients with the hand that we're dealt with. So we wanted to make sure that we could adapt that framework for BPO. So we've got a slightly amended framework for BPOs as well. There's obviously a lot of very similar things within that framework. Agent experience doesn't really change. Strategy and planning is obviously very, very similar, but maybe just a slight tweak in that customer to be a bit more focused around the overall client experience. So thinking about onboarding journeys, thinking about knowledge transfer, thinking about the quality of the services that are available to clients, and also thinking about those important feedback loops and ways that you're utilizing technology again to innovate and deliver better outcomes for your clients, and obviously your customers of your clients is where we look at. So there's still a framework still for, like I said, direct client facing, customer facing, and also BPO organizations as well. Obviously, as part of that detailed assessment and each of those pillars, there's lots of what we call modules essentially underpin each of those pillars. So you can see some of those modules there. We've got the client and customer journeys, we've got IVR experience, call listening, quality, technology and performance overlap over a number of those pillars as well. So there's a lot of detail that we want to look at and that we want to see. And obviously there's a lot of ways that we'll be able to assess each of those modules through the process. Obviously, like we've touched on, we want to do staff interviews, we want to hold workshops, but I think the key vehicle of the accreditation is going to be that site visit. And you can see there from this slide that we're intending to do a 4-day site visit with each of the people that we accredit. And I think this is really important, right? Because I think this is going to be the way that we really get to first-hand experience what's happening on the contact center floor, what the vibe, the culture, and everything that is not maybe doesn't really come through in a remote setting, or doesn't really come through in what's written down on paper. It's what you feel when you're going into that center and what you can observe that the agents are truly buying into. So yeah, obviously you can see there it's going to be a jam-packed agenda over those 4 days. There's lots for us to see, lots for us to do, and I won't go through all of that, but you can see obviously after that 4-day site visit, what we're then planning to do is provide any of the people that are being accredited with that detailed personal report, which will then obviously highlight areas of focus and things that we saw that were really, really good. And that will allow us to recommend an accreditation level to UKCCF. So what are those accreditation levels like, and what are we looking for? So for each of those modules, each of those pillars, and overall we'll obviously give an accreditation. So that could be gold, silver, bronze. We could decide not to offer an accreditation level. Obviously we're not thinking that that's going to happen too often, but yes, obviously each of those pillars will then amalgamate up into an overall accreditation. So it might be that you're gold overall for your agent experience and gold for your customer experience, and maybe you're silver for your strategy and planning pillar. And obviously that will ultimately then come into a gold overall. But what we will do is obviously within that explain why there is those levels, what we saw, what we didn't see. And in advance of that, and I won't go through each of these frameworks, but there is documented for each module, for each pillar, and overall exactly what we'd need to see for bronze, silver, and gold. And we will share that with you in advance of any site visit, because what we want the process really to be is it's very transparent. We don't want to be there on site and say, hey, have you got this for us? And you're like, no, we haven't prepared that, or we haven't got that to hand, and we have to send you that afterwards. We want it to be completely transparent. This is the kind of things we're looking for. This is the kind of evidence we're going to need, so there's no surprises along the way. And also, we don't want surprises at the end either, when we're saying, well, actually, we think you're silver for this, and this is the reasons why. We don't want it to be, oh, well, you haven't considered XYZ within that. We want it to be an open and transparent conversation, and that there's no surprises along the way. So what is required from you if you were to go through the accreditation process? I think it's clear to see what we've gone through today. There's definitely going to be some kind of time investment that you'll need to make to be part of this process. And I suppose we categorize those key dependencies really into three key areas. I think access to the right people is obviously going to be key. I'm a big believer that people are what makes a contact center good, bad, or indifferent. So we're going to need to see and have access to the right people to be able to accredit that fairly. So that's from all walks of life within that operation. So from your agents to your team leaders, your ops managers, planning, IT, HR, all the way through to your senior execs. We want to get all of those different perspectives on what is good, what could potentially be better, and what their experience is of that contact center operation. So we want to have access to that wide stakeholder group. We're obviously going to need some logistical support. We want to provide minimal disruption to your operation. So we want to work with your planning team to say, look, we're going to take this group of agents off. When would the best time for that to happen, so we don't cause any disruption to your service delivery. We're going to need some support with scheduling with that wide group of stakeholders, making sure that we can fit around their already busy day-to-day roles, I'm sure. And also things like booking meeting spaces, making sure we've got workshop facilities with whiteboards and flip boards and pens and all of that kind of stuff, so we can make them as collaborative and engaging as possible. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, which we've touched on already, is about providing data and evidence. Like I said, I think we want this process to be as objective as possible. And when we make those recommendations to Trevor and say we think this is a gold standard contact center, we want to be able to clearly say why that is. This is what we saw, this is what we heard, this is what we were able to collect in terms of evidence. So if we're able to collect things like performance metric data, if we're able to collect operational reports, process documents, coaching and training records, technology architecture, and how that's all integrated together, customer feedback, strategy documents, all of those kind of things, we'll be able to objectively say this is why we think it's that. Whereas if those things aren't to hand, it becomes more of an opinion-based thing, which is obviously then, like I said, not potentially going to lead to more surprises, which we want to completely try and avoid. So last question, I suppose, and maybe most important one for people on this call, trying to think what is it in it for us if we were to do the accreditation. Again, we probably thought about three key areas where there's some benefit to that investment that you're potentially making. First one is recognition. Again, I've managed contact centers for a long time, and I do know that it's sometimes hard to step away and recognize how far you've come as an operation and think, well, actually we've really improved in this area and we've done a lot of work and we've seen some really positive results in that area. So it's hard sometimes to step away from that because you're so invested in it. So obviously what you'll get through this process is that professional recognition, that certification that does actually recognize the good work that you've done and the dedication that you have in terms of that service excellence. So I think that's a really important part. Obviously getting an opportunity to celebrate your success. I think what a good opportunity to, again, recognize how far you've come, celebrate that success. Maybe when you get your accreditation back from the UKCCF, an opportunity to have a bit of a celebration, a bit of a party with your agents, recognise some of the individuals that have been through that journey with you, and really recognise the good work that you're doing. Obviously, we're looking to give you also a trophy and a certificate that you can showcase proudly in your operations, which would be a good recognition piece for your teams and for yourselves. We've got a bit of a prototype of what that trophy could look like there. Don't hold us to that, but I'm sure Trevor's going to make sure it looks as slick and will look as good in your trophy case as possible. The next area, I think, again, is continual service improvement. Again, I think having managed contact centers, sometimes it can be difficult to see the wood from the trees. It's difficult to think, well, where's the next best thing that I can do to improve? Or you're so invested in a journey that you've already taken, it's hard to see the bigger picture of ways that you can do things differently. So going through this process, you're going to get that independent, objective review of your performance across each of those pillars. You're going to get practical, real-life ways where you can implement things differently in your operation to hopefully drive improvements. Within that, you're obviously going to get the performance aspect benchmarked against your industry peers, and all of that kind of good insight that we've got from the benchmarking report there as well. I think, again, the fact that the people that are doing the accreditations are people who have been there, done it, got the t-shirt when it comes to running contact center operations, who really have their finger on the pulse on what's going on, the latest trends in the industry, what good looks like. I think that's really going to be useful, and you're going to get all of that kind of insight, like I said, into the practical ways that you could implement change within the operation to hopefully drive better efficiency, or drive improvements to engagement, or drive better customer satisfaction. And all of that's going to be captured in one centralized, personalized, documented report for you, which you can use as the basis of your continual service improvement plan. Potentially, you can share that widely across the business with specific teams and say, look, this is what we need to think about, this is what we need to do to be better. And the last area, I think, is around marketing. I think more and more organizations right now are focusing on service excellence as an opportunity to distinguish themselves in the marketplace. You look at what Octopus Energy is doing at the moment, lots of focus on their service delivery, excellence in terms of trying to differentiate themselves from the crowd. So absolutely, you're going to get an opportunity to do that as well. As part of the process, you get a digital badge that can be used for marketing purposes. That's valid for 2 years, and hopefully will be a good tool for you to be able to drive more customers, drive more clients, all of that kind of good stuff. And obviously, like I said there, distinguish yourself from that competition. So in doing this process, you're essentially demonstrating, I think, that your operation really is market leading and is dedicated to delivering better outcomes for your customers, better outcomes for your agents, and again, really differentiates yourself in that crowded marketplace. Last but not least, I think Trevor's kindly said that every centre that participates in the accreditation programme will get a discounted membership to the UKCCF for the following year. So that allows you to continue be involved in the amazing stuff that Trevor is already doing and the team is already doing, such as the leadership and mentorship programmes, obviously the award programme, which we touched on, all the networking events where, again, you get to meet and learn from other operations and other industry leaders. So a good opportunity to continue that networking as well. So that's all that we really wanted to cover off with you today. I'll now pass it back to Chantal for any questions. Obviously, she mentioned that you've got the handout there, which has got the link to the website. It's got our contact details on there. If anybody's got any questions, wants to have a follow-up session, please reach out to myself, Trevor, or Chris, and we'll be more than happy to answer those questions. Thank you.
Amazing, Dave. Thank you very much. So let's have a look what questions we have. So the first question we have from the audience is, what is the financial investment for the accreditation programme?
I could take that one if you like. I think the financial investment is obviously going to be dependent on a number of factors. So size of the operation, location of the operation, the number of sites that want to be part of the process. So it is going to be a bespoke price for each operation that wants to go through it. So we couldn't give a one-size-fits-all price because there's going to be a lot of other factors. So yeah, if anybody's interested and thinks that it could be an opportunity for them, but they want to understand what that cost could look like for them, more than happy to set up a follow-up session where we can give them a personalised quote and a personalised overview of everything that we would do for them.
Amazing, thank you. I hope that answers your question. Just reading through, sorry. So does anybody, the people that apply for accreditation, do they have to be UKCCF members to be able to apply?
No, it's open to both members and non-members of the UKCCF.
Amazing, thank you, Trevor. And reading through here, these here. So once achieved, how long does the accreditation last for?
So that will be 2 years. So it'll be valid from the point of accreditation for 2 years. And again, happy to then look at ways of re-accrediting after that if you wanted to continue to call yourself a UKCCF Gold Standard Accredited Contact Centre.
Sounds really good, rolls off the tongue very nicely. Just having a look through, I don't think there's any more questions from the audience. You did such a good job, Dave. You gave them all the information they needed. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to pass you over to Trevor for closing remarks.
Okay, thank you, Chantel. So obviously this is a great programme. It really does allow you to show how serious you take customer service and getting recognised for it. So please feel free to reach out to ourselves, to Dave or to Chris regarding any questions you may have. So I'd just like to wrap up by saying thank you to Dave for all the information there, really concise, thank you, and to Chris and to CGI for supporting us on this programme. I think it's a great initiative, and it will definitely help drive standards and maintain standards in the industry. So thank you very much indeed, and thank you to everyone that's joined us today.
Amazing, thank you, Trevor. Yes, so for any further information on UKCCF, you can visit our website www.uk-ccf.co.uk. You'll find all the information on the accreditation programme there, and membership and our awards, etc. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you, Chris, thank you, Dave, and thank you, Trevor. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye for now.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.